What's going on, everybody? My name is isaacmijangosBIZ, and in this video, let's review the Huji app. Now, I was asked to review this specific application after I did my previous review, and I think in order to summarize this app in one sentence, it's definitely for the millennials, for the Gen Z. And why do I mean that? It's because it really overpowers the photo. It really throws on that preset, and the saturation for the photos, daylight photos, is pushed to the max. We're going to be talking about its design, its advertisement, and how it handles certain images throughout the day. So let's get started. So in terms of design, I really enjoy the design of this. I think it's way more thought out. My favorite thing that I noticed when I first opened the application was that they use the camera sensors, the front camera sensors in front of it to give you this sort of expanding viewfinder. I thought that was really cool. It's something that I had never seen in any other application. And in terms of the viewfinder, it gives you so many options. It gives you a timer. It gives you whether you want a high quality image or not. And it gives you so many other things. And it even allows you to use the selfie camera, which the previous review did not allow me to do. So I really like that. It's really well thought out. In terms of development, this application allows you to see your photos right away, so you don't have to wait until 9 a.m. to actually see the photos. Now, personally for me, I think that takes away a little bit of the fun of the Fujifilm app. Why do I say that? Well, because back in the day, when you took a disposable camera, the disposable camera took weeks to get by. Now, that's not anything that deters away from the application, but to me, I think it's not as cool as the previous app. So moving on to ads. Why do we need ads? Because it's just your standard typical thing that you need when you're building a free application, but they are in a much better location on top of your final result images. So I like that way better. They're still not personalized, so you just still get these random ads, which I don't mind. I don't like my personal data being thrown around. So I like the way that they handle the ads a lot better. So now we're gonna move on to how it handles the images. Again, I try to keep it as consistent as my previous review. That means I took photos in the morning during harsh light, indoors, outdoors, with flash and without flash, and we're going to be going over it. Let's start off with the first thing, and that is just your standard morning shot with some items in it here. We have my shoes and some jeans and something on the floor. And what I noticed here is that it handles the colors in a very drastic way. There's like this sort of Gaussian blur going on. I kid you not, I was holding on to my phone with two hands, and I'm pretty sure it was still, and they throw in this like zooming in effect. A Gaussian blur is pretty standard when you're making films or when you're taking any photo in Photoshop. If you want that effect, it just essentially means that you're adding a fake zoom into it. It did this quite often. It didn't just do this, but the lens flares. I decided to keep the lens flares on for the entire application and the entire review. Someone just put a .random piece of code in there because sometimes, like in this photo of my dog right here, the lighting makes sense, right? It's hitting it from the corner, the light's coming in from the corner, but this photo right here of the flowers, there was no lens flare or anything coming in, but you still get this sort of rainbow lens flare. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of physics, but whoever did that, I guess, just really liked lens flare. Who are you, J.J. Abrams? That is sort of the standard when it comes to just shooting in bright daylight. It did it really well. Now moving on to the tree photo on here, as you can see, one thing that I really noticed with this application was the crazy amount of saturation in the greens or in the blues, or just naturally whenever there's enough light, it just pushes the colors like crazy. I don't feel like that's very true to the Fujifilm look. I think most Fujifilm is pretty desaturated, so they must have slapped some preset, or they have some sort of software in there that tells it to push it to that extent. Personally, I don't like that much saturation, but it really up to you. Art is subjective. Backlit images, for the most part, this application really sucks at handling any backlit objects. Here, two pictures of the tree. It's kind of difficult to see, but one thing that I really noticed was that it really crushes the shadows. Like, the shadows are so indistinguishable. One photo is with flash, the other is without it. And I kid you not, I would not be able to tell that both of these are backlit if I wasn't like noticing the giant random lens flare again. That's kind of the distinction between having the flash on and the flash off. I really don't know where these lens flares are coming from for the most part. It just seems so random. Now, where I was heavily impressed with this application was where I was taking nighttime photos. The photos are all very well saved. So let's take a look at this picture of my desk right here, right? This one is with the flash off. Now, compared to the previous app, the app tried to save it, make it really yellow, it made it really mucky. But in this application, it took a more creative route, adding a bit more grain. If I would to say it, the white balance is only off by like 500 Kelvin. It's still usable. If I zoom in, it looks like they decided to add grain instead of just pushing the sharpness. So what that essentially just means is that they're trying to save the image in a much more sophisticated way, in a much more playful way. And it actually stays a lot more true to the Fujifilm look. Now, this photo right here with flash looks perfectly usable. Again, a creative way of taking everything. And then if you look at this picture of here, my shoes, again, this is just a different setting. This is actually under more fluorescent lights, so which means that the white balance should be a lot more neutral and a lot more blue. And even with the flash off, the photos are still very usable. It's still very safe to play with them. And I was really surprised in that aspect. With the flash on, you kind of see these Newton rings. I might just be seeing a Newton ring right here with this ring light, but it's still a very creative and a very fun way that I've seen for the most part with any of these applications to save the image. And I was really impressed. I think this app is more for the nighttime photos than anything. So what are my thoughts at the end of the day? I think that this application is definitely for the people that are trying to replicate that oversaturated, overdeveloped look. And Fujifilm to me has always seemed like this desaturated, cool tones sort of way that they've done things. So to me, this application really shines during the nighttime. It replicates things really well. During the day, it could be a little bit better. And what I mean by that is just seems like the lens flares are pretty random. The saturation is just pushed to the max. And to me, that's not something that I enjoy, but art is subjective. So that might be a look that you really like. And the improvements I hope to see within this application is just constantly pushing that nighttime photography, because this is where it really shines, whether you have the flash on or the flash off. It does horribly in backlit situations, so it might not be where you want to take the photo at, because you're just going to end up with some like silhouette photos. But if you're into that, then that's you. But I hope to keep on playing with the nighttime photography, because I've never seen an application play around with the grain and the curves and everything in that way. And I was really impressed. So shout out to the developers that were able to do that and were able to do it in a creative fashion. I think that's it. This is a really short review. I think the next video that I'm going to do is I got the new peak design. I was able to get the previous one replaced because it was just like falling apart. But that's going to be the next review, so make sure to stick around for that, because I have a lot of things to say about V2. But that's it. I thank you so much for your time and your attention. My name is isaacmijangosBIZ, and I'll catch you in the next one.